Welcome to Close Effect.
The Business of Benefits is your no BS, no sales guide to real solutions.
No gimmicks, just the truth about how to take control, transform your benefits, and care for your most valuable asset, your people.
If you're tired of the same old sales pitch and you're ready to rethink your benefits, this podcast is for you. The truth is out there. Are you ready to hear it? Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Business of Benefits. I am your host, Chelsea Rakes, and today I'm excited to speak to the man, the myth, the legend, Nelson Griswold. Nelson, thanks for joining us.
Well, Chelsea, it's a pleasure. It's great to see you. And I knew this was a professional podcast, but when I get to the office and you've got hair and makeup in my boardroom waiting for me, in the words of the character Rocky from Rocky Horror Picture Show, I'm truly beautiful to behold. And it's thanks to your hair and makeup people. So thank you for that.
Yeah, they're magicians. No problem there. Just so everyone who is listening, because everybody does think I'm a little bougie, that's actually not true.
That's not true.
That is a lie. Nelson is just beautiful on his own. But Nelson, thanks so much for being here. I obviously have been a fan of yours for a long time. When I first came into the industry about coming up on a decade, maybe closer to technically 8 years, you were one of the first people that I researched and wanted to get to know. And I remember meeting you at a conference and I was just this I don't know if you even remember. I think it might have been Miami. I don't know where we were, but everybody's like, that's the guy you need to know. And I was kind of timid and I was like, oh, I'm excited to meet him. So anyways, it's just funny now that we're, colleagues, friends, and I have you on my podcast. So things come full circle.
They do.
So why don't you tell our listeners, and as a reminder, our listeners are primarily employers. So they're going to be all sizes of employers, mostly going to be probably 100 plus employees, all the way up to multiple thousands, located all across the country. Why don't you tell them a little bit about your background and what kind of got you into this mission to fix American healthcare?
Well, background actually started in politics. I was a political consultant coming out of college, and realized as I was helping candidates that I believed in get elected, discovered that they got no good advice when they got to the Capitol. This is in Tennessee. I'm a Nashville native. They get down here and they vote badly. Even though their principles say this, they don't know that their principles actually should get them voting the other direction. So I got into public policy, started a public policy think tank here in Nashville. Ran that for a while, ended up with another public policy think tank. One of my former board members was in the employee benefits business in a benefit communication enrollment firm. Said, what are you doing? I said, I'm looking for a job. And I ended up taking a VP of communications position, which got me into employee benefits. Fast forward, I ended up working with high-level, at the time, brokers. We've converted them into consultative advisors who used to work with HR. We now focus on the C-suite. We do not exclude HR, but we want to have that strategic financial conversation with the CEO or CFO, preferably both at the same time. And our whole goal is to help employers do what they think is impossible. They've been told it's impossible. If they've heard it once, they've heard it 1,000 times. A claim is a claim is a claim. We don't know. There's nothing we can do about your health care claims. You just got to pay them. Well, that's what I call healthcare's big lie. In fact, employers can control both the quality as well as the cost of healthcare. So our mission at Next Gen Benefits, which is not an agency, it's not a health plan, it's a new model for employer-sponsored health plans. Our goal, our job is to help CEOs and CFOs and business owners take control of what they think is uncontrollable, and that is their second or third largest operating expense, healthcare. And as I said, control the quality of the care. And if you control the quality and go for high quality, the cost automatically comes down. I can explain that, a little bit longer explanation, but it's true. And as a result, and you do this by the way, simple business process. You manage the supply chain of healthcare. Right now, nobody's managing that. Your employees have the riskiest credit card in America, the insurance card. And they're able to go anywhere they want for any procedure they can get permission to have at any price, at any time, and you get stuck with the bill. And I give a good example of that is, doctor, I want Ozempic. Well, the doctor has two choices. He can say no and potentially risk losing a patient, or he can write you a script. What does he care? It's not going to kill you. It might hurt your pancreas, according to a new study, but it won't kill you. So yes, and all of a sudden, the employer is paying $1,000 a month, $800 a month, whatever it is these days,
at least,
for a medication that you may or may not need, because the healthcare system is rigged that way. So we help the employer take control and get out of that rigged game.
I love it. So we do a lot of the same work, right? And I feel like when I talk to someone like you, that's just so ingrained in the day-to-day of the business that I live, breathe, and believe in wholeheartedly, I can find myself wanting to take the conversation a certain direction and get really technical. But before we do any of that, I want to back up and make sure our listeners all have sort of a foundation of knowledge. So can you explain first what you mean when you say, actually, let me say one more thing. Guys, those of you who are listening that have heard the big lie, Nelson was essentially like the founder of that saying. That's what part of that and Nurse Deb's work, check out her episode as well, is what sparked the documentary that Donovan and I produced with other advisors around the country. So if you've seen the documentary, you've probably already seen Nelson, which is cool. But so much of his verbiage is shaping the future of this industry, which is, again, why I'm so happy that you're on this call. But let's back up a little bit, because I love to explain this, but I'd love to hear you explain it. A claim is a claim is a claim is a claim. You had cancer, you had a NICU baby, you had a kidney, renal failure. Sorry, here's your 20% increase, and let's kick the can down the road next year. Maybe next year we can fix this if your risk goes down. Can you explain to the employers listening why a claim is not a claim?
Let me explain why a claim is a claim, according to the people who propagate that lie.
Sure.
It's because the insurance companies, because of an obscure section in the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, caps insurance companies' profits at 20% gross maximum. That means they have to pay all of their expenses, the commissions to the brokers, everything out of that 20%. That means 80 cents of every dollar must go to pay for health care, or it's supposed to come back to the employer. It never does, but it's supposed to. Because of that, if your profit margin is fixed and your job as a CEO is to increase the share value for your investors, for your stockholders, the only way, if your margin is fixed, the only way you can increase profit, EBITDA, is by increasing your top line revenue. Well, what is revenue for an employer? It's what for an insurance company. It's what employers call premium. So if premium goes up, top line revenue goes up for an insurance company. 20%, well, it's actually about 4.5 to 6.5 net profit for insurance companies. 4.5% of a bigger number, Chelsea, is a bigger number. So the insurance companies they need premiums to go up. Well, what forces premiums up? Medical trend, which is just another word for saying medical inflation. Well, who facilitates medical inflation? The insurance companies go and negotiate prices with the hospitals, and they say, go ahead and raise. Yeah, you can increase your rates, because if you increase your rates, we have to increase our premiums. And so you get this step ladder going up where the carrier allows the hospital to raise rates. Well, then we have to raise our premiums. We'll go ahead and raise rates again. We'll raise and so for employers, it's a nightmare. Your employees you're paying more for healthcare and you're paying more for your insurance. The reason that's not true is even when you have a bill from the hospital, there are a number of ways to adjudicate that bill and reduce the cost of that bill. But even better is helping navigating employees using nurse-driven navigation to go to high-quality therefore lower cost facilities. Let me mention just why is higher quality less expensive? The surgeon might actually be more expensive, but if he is a high quality surgeon, he doesn't make mistakes or what are known in healthcare as complications. He doesn't have complications. Complications are things like, while I accidentally nicked one of your nerves with the scalpel, or, oh gosh, I think I nicked an artery or a vein. You're bleeding, or I left something inside. In the worst cases, I was supposed to remove your left kidney and I removed your right kidney.
We literally had one of those, like not on our health plan, but we had the nurse navigator check one of the surgeons, and it was wrong surgery, wrong patient. And then he had another one for wrong surgery, wrong limb. Guys, listeners, these happen every single day, not to mention the rate of misdiagnosis. But that's another conversation.
Oh, that's a whole conversation. I recently spoke at a healthcare conference in Hong Kong on misdiagnosis and the importance of second opinions. And the audience was blown away. This was an international audience. They peppered me with questions. Nobody ever thought to mention this to them. It was fascinating. But anyway, the fact of the matter is that by getting your employees to high quality providers in the first place eliminates complications, which, by the way, that complication simply means a second surgery that surgeon is going to get paid again to fix the problem he caused, and usually readmission to the hospital.
So and all the checkups after.
Yes, and all of the missed work. And who knows what debilitation comes from that mistake. So by eliminating the mistake by going with high quality providers and by going with high quality facilities that have usually two factors. One, they have a lot of experience with that procedure. So let's say it's open heart surgery. They have a nursing team that's used to doing open heart surgeries. They are quick. They know which instrument to hand to the doctor even before he asks for it. The other factor, though, which makes the surgery go better and quicker, which means the patient's under anesthesia for a shorter amount of time, which, as someone who's had a serious interaction with the healthcare system, you know that. One of the biggest problems in surgery isn't the surgeon, it's the surgeon being too slow, keeping the patient under anesthesia, and you end up with an adverse reaction that could include coma. You don't know. People are allergic to anesthesia in many cases. But the other factor around facilities is infection rate. And if you can go to a facility with a low infection rate, your odds of coming out without an infection go way, way up. My father-in-law had a stroke. He was 82. It's about 25 years ago. He had a stroke, went into the hospital. The neurologist happened to be on call, happened to be a friend of mine. He said, well, your father-in-law is really lucky. He's going to recover 90% on that side affected by the stroke. Well, they put him in for a couple of days. They gave him a sedative they shouldn't have given him. He had a bad reaction. They had to sedate him further. And at midnight, because of untreated sleep apnea, he had a heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the stroke didn't kill him. The heart attack didn't kill him. But 14 days later, he died in the hospital of MRSA, which is a blood infection, which is a hospital-borne blood infection. Well, that hospital's in Nashville. And just a couple of years ago, I was looking at leapfrog data. And I said, I wonder what St. Thomas looks like. And they had an A-. I said, well, good for them. But you can break it down, get granular. Why do they have an A- and not an A+, Chelsea? Infections. They still have a massive infection problem 25 years later. The point is there are ways to ensure that employees have a better outcome. They don't have complications. They don't get hospital-borne infections. And it costs the health plan a lot less money because you're not paying for 2 surgeries and a readmission. So there are all sorts of ways to address costs. And then you've got drugs. And so there are lots of ways to source drugs other than through the pharmacy benefit manager. And those ways.
Can we pause for a sec? I want to
Sure.
I want to ask you one question, because if I was an employer who is kind of hearing this concept for the first time, that like, there is not a direct relationship between cost and quality, and
Inverse relationship, actually.
Exactly. There is not a direct, there's a very indirect. Absolutely no positive relationship between the two. So if I know this as an employer and I care about my employees, what does it look like in practice, right? Because if you have a giant logo on your card, and like Nelson said earlier, your employees are essentially using it as a credit card, kind of going wherever they want. They have no access to this quality metrics that Nelson's talking about, and nobody to help steer and really navigate them to higher quality facilities, which happen to also be lower cost. So, what does it look like tangibly for an employer that wants to start giving a crap about quality? Like, what types of programs do they need to implement in order to be able to find out the information that you just shared with us?
Well, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. And it's not complicated or complex in a technical sense. The insurance, so I can tell you right now, and I could pull it up on my phone, I could show you quality data on specific doctors and tell you the story about why I happen to have that quality data on that particular doctor, because somebody was in a crisis and needed it. I was able to get hold of it. If I can access quality data, now I'm wired within our industry, but if I can get quality data on surgeons and on facilities, you know that Blue Cross can. You know that Cigna, Aetna, United, if they want it, but they don't want it. They don't care. Why do they not care? I don't know. Well, I do know. They don't care. They don't care because they are protecting the doctors and the facilities in their network. In fact, to be fair to them, they cannot tell you that one doctor is better than another. There's a clause in their contract with the doctors called a non-steerage clause. You can't steer a patient away from one doctor to another doctor. Well, who wrote that contract, Chelsea? The insurance companies wrote the contract, which, and I'm going to make an inarguable statement. The insurance companies are more concerned about protecting dangerous doctors and bad healthcare facilities than they are protecting the members of their plan. It's inarguable because they don't tell you who these bad doctors are. So if the insurance company is running your health plan, you are not going to get quality data.
Right.
And
you mean they control all four pieces of your health plan, right? Because I just want to make sure employers really understand that, like, because a lot of them, like, they might use, let's say, like a network, like a PHCS or some type of a wrap or something like that. This is really like what we're talking about is when you've got one logo on your card.
When all decisions about the healthcare plan are being made by what we call the BUCAs, Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna, BUCA, when a BUCA carrier is making all the decisions about the health plan, you don't make any decisions as an employer. And when I say you, the employer, I want to be very clear. We don't ask a CEO or a business owner or a CFO to know healthcare and know all of the technical aspects of a health plan. I asked the CEO once, he said, I don't know anything about healthcare. And I said, well, what's your biggest contract? He said, steel. I said, do you know anything about steel? Oh, no, I have a purchasing agent for that. I said, exactly. You don't have to know anything about healthcare. A next-gen advisor will be your purchasing agent for healthcare. So all a CEO, CFO has to do is lean into their second or third largest operating expense and say, I'm tired of being at the mercy of a party that doesn't have my best interests. I want to take control. And once they take control, which, by the way, this is where it gets complicated for some employers, they have to be self-funded. Because if you're fully insured, by definition, the insurance company is running your plan. So self-funded with an independent, non-BUCA, non-insurance company administrator, now you can start to apply. First of all, you can get the quality data, but you can apply it by having a nurse navigation team that you hire them. You hire a company to do it. You don't have to hire a bunch of nurses and and navigate people. But you hire a navigation company to come alongside your employees and help them deal with this very complex system we call healthcare. What could be better for the employee? Well, you've had health issues in the past. You had that terrible accident. And I've heard you talk about how maddening it is when you don't know what's next and you really don't know the right questions to ask. But somebody needs to ask those questions. When you have a nurse navigator working with you, they know the questions to ask. They are part of the healthcare system. So that's how you get involved in this.
So just to reiterate something, not only do they know the questions to ask, but they're actually on your side. Because you could have a BUCA plan and call an advocacy line, and like there's still incentives baked into all of the processes within that business model, versus when you're unbundling and employers. I really want to stress something. When Nelson said you hire a nurse navigator, like, again, it's not nurses that are working for your company. It's literally just a vendor that's built into the plan that your consultant's going to manage. And they are the ones, you literally just tell the employees, call the nurse. It's amazing. And they love it because, I mean, you mentioned my accident. I had a concussion, a brain injury in 2013, and ended up with a bunch of medical debt, like 1 in 12 Americans experience. Was 22, had absolutely no idea what the heck to do with all of this. Went back to Canada to do a brain injury rehab program. Bills followed me up there, didn't even know what a deductible was, thought I had insurance. You know how nice it would have been if somebody just said, hey, call this nurse, she can help you out, or he can help you out. And you have somebody that's actually on your side. Like, they're not only protecting your health, but they're protecting your finances too. It's the biggest game changer. And I honestly think that this conversation gets missed a lot, the quality conversation, right? Because when we start talking about self-funding, usually employers are in a really precarious situation. They've kicked the can down the road. Now they've got a 35, 40, 42% increase. Shit's hitting the fan. Everybody's like, okay, we got to go self-funded. Like, we actually have to fix this now, as opposed to maybe doing it a couple years earlier when you had some leverage. But nonetheless, they do it when they do it. And the conversations around financials. Very rarely, I mean, it should be around this, and we obviously talk about this, but what I've noticed is that the trigger for a lot of employers is going to be something financial related, and then they start to see the health outcomes with access to this data and the nurse concierge. And we literally had a client a couple of weeks ago. An employee left. The CEO did an exit interview with him, and he was leaving for some amazing opportunity, different industry. It was very amicable. He told the CEO what he would miss most about working for this company was the healthcare program, because he's never actually had a team of nurses that cared so much about his health, the concierge level support from the Ethos team that set his appointments and pretty much did everything for him, and that he actually got healthier here. So he said he was going to miss that. And if you were to look at the ID card, you'd have no idea, right? Like a normal employee who looks at the ID card would have no idea what insurance they had. So again, cost and quality, not a thing. But yeah, what advice would you have for employers that are listening and they're like, yeah, this sounds good, but self-funded sounds scary. I just hate the term, by the way. I wish we didn't even have to call it that.
Well, self-insurance is another term, but let me let insurance's dirty little secret out of the bag. If you are a fully insured employer, you are actually a self-funded employer. The insurance company, you pay premium for the year. Let's say it's $1.2 million, so I can do the math. You're paying $100,000 a month premium, and that covers your healthcare costs. Well, where does that 1.2 million number come from? The insurance company has actuaries. They look at the health and the experience of your employees, look at claims data, and they say, yeah, we think $1.2 million is what your employees are going to spend. And there's obviously a little bit of wiggle room at the top, a little cushion. So they say your premium is $1.2 million. Now, the reason employers love this is that, okay, I'm going to pay $1.2 million, but anything over that, I don't have to pay it. The insurance company pays it. Let me describe a health plan. The insurance company says, okay, here's your premium, $1.2 million for the year. And anything over that, we'll pick up. We'll cover for you. So your maximum out of pocket, your maximum liability is $1.2 million. That's your fully insured plan. No, that is your self-funded plan. Because instead of an insurance company coming in and doing it all and managing it, you are self-funding, which you're writing a check of $100,000 every month. If you're not self-funding, what is that? Right? The insurance company isn't paying your premiums, you are. And then there's what's known as a stop-loss insurance, which sits on top of your $1.2 million or whatever your premium is and covers anything above that amount. And you can self-fund at exactly the same levels you're currently paying. I want to pay $1.2 million next year. Great. We'll put a stop-loss policy above your $1.2 million of your premium, and that will be all you have to pay is $1.2 million. Anything else the insurance company catches. Fully insured employers are already self-funded. They just don't know it. Here's the problem, though. If your employees spend less than $1.2 million, you let's say they only spend $1 million, and you've got $200,000 sitting there. Whose money is that? And any employer will say, "Oh, that's my money." No, sorry. If you're fully insured, that is extra profit because the insurance company's already put profit into the premium. That's extra profit for the insurance company. They keep your what's known as underwriting profit. They keep your unspent claims dollars. When you are self-funding, you're putting in $1.2 million if you're doing level payments, but at the end of the year, there's $200,000. That's still your money. The insurance company has it. This is the best of both worlds for the insurance company. You're self-funding, but they get to keep any profit. It's absolutely crazy. So there's no more risk. There's no more risk, Chelsea, as you know. There's no more risk to self-funding. By the way, it's not self-funding, it's partial self-funding. You're funding up to where your stop-loss carrier comes in. So it's just as safe. It's just as safe as a fully insured plan, but much better control.
100%. And let's talk about that control, because I think this is where maybe employers don't realize the fully insured premium, that $1.2 million, that's a fixed cost under your fully insured, right? And for those in the car, I've got air quotes going on because Nelson's right. It's not, but nonetheless, it's a fixed cost. It's gone. Like, bye, see you later. You perform really well, doesn't matter. On the self-funded, when you're actually designing your own plan, the really cool part is that 60 to 70% of that 1.2 million is actually variable and impactable, meaning that's the claims cost. And if we can impact the cost of claims because an employee calls the nurse and instead of going to some terrible surgeon and, racking up a claim of $500,000, they get directed to a quality place, ambulatory surgical center maybe instead of a hospital. And now we're looking at a $70,000 claim, right? That's what's variable. And that is the most important part of this whole conversation. Because think back to the earlier part of our conversation. How is the insurance company increasing their profits? Increasing the cost of care is the only way that they can do it. So they have zero incentive for any variability in that 60 to 70% of the claims cost. Versus on a self-funded plan, if you're working with a consultant that knows how to lower the cost of care effectively, that is all variable. And I don't know if you've seen this, Nelson, but I have seen that a lot of the CFOs I've talked to this year, I think it's this whole future-proofing, risk-adverse sort of mindset where they're so obsessed with the fixed cost. And it's like, guys, the opportunity is on the variable cost, the actual claims cost here. Like, we've had CFOs that, are obsessing over a $5 PEPM in the TPA admin fee versus, understanding that in fully insured, you are getting screwed every which way, right? Like, have you seen that mentality as well?
Well, they've been trained. It's not their fault. If you're a CFO watching this or listening to this, there's no blame here. You have been misled. You have been lied to. You've been absolutely lied to. I have a publication I've put out called The Myths of Self-Funding, debunking the myths of self-funding. And your brokers and your insurance companies have been telling you for years, oh, self-funding is way too dangerous. it's too volatile for cash flow control, blah, 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 and none of which are true. And they've taught you to buy insurance on the monthly cost or annualized. And that's what I've been trained to look at instead of understanding, because you don't understand, have not understood until now, that fixed cost isn't a fixed cost unless you're buying a health insurance company and health insurance companies fully insured plan, in which case it is a fixed cost, 100% non-refundable. Your premium is your premium, and it's gone as soon as you write the check. It's gone. Doesn't belong to you anymore, regardless of how much of that money is actually spent on healthcare. When the fixed cost becomes the obsession, you are picking up nickels and stepping over dollars. Right? So like, oh no, I can't manage this $5 PPM. Well, that $5 PPM may pay for a cost containment strategy that will save hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, depending on the size of the company. I'll give you a quick example of that because I don't know that people understand. Well, if they listen to you, I'm sure they've heard it before, but they can never hear it too often. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he mentioned he had a shoulder replacement about 15 years ago. It was $47,000. 15 years ago, $47,000. I said, well, I wonder what the Surgery Center of Oklahoma, which posts its pricing online, and it's a fixed price. It's a bundled price. So that includes the anesthesia, the anesthesiologist, the surgeon's fee, and the facility fee. The only item not in there is the appliance, and because it depends on how much you want to spend on the appliance, and they buy it at cost and they give it to you at cost. So I went on and said, okay, you paid $15,000 years ago. What does the Surgery Center of Oklahoma charge today? Less than $17,000. Now, I don't know how much a shoulder costs. Let's say it's $3,000, less than $20,000 today. And you know that $47,000 is probably $83,000 today with all of the healthcare inflation we've had. So that's the kind of cost containment. I don't like to use the word savings because nobody knows what is savings. You know what you're
variability.
doing? You're putting free cash flow. When you don't spend this money and you control the plan, you're putting free cash flow back on your balance sheet. I don't know a CEO on the planet who doesn't love the idea of free cash flow. Everybody's got a project that I can't get funded. We build a fund. You build a fund for them using overspend from their health plan that you pull out and put in that fund so that they can spend on something productive, not giving it to the insurance company as profit.
So I want to hear what your one piece of advice for employers would be if they want to take the first step. I mean, there's obviously so many things we can do. We were running out of time, so we didn't even get to talk about pharmacy. We didn't get to talk about pre-auths, which I'm bummed about because I think you're just going to have to come back. Sorry, I'm going to have to steal another 40 minutes of your time.
I would be delighted.
Okay, good. So we will definitely get that scheduled. But I'd love to hear just, you have so much perspective. You've seen decades and decades and decades of this problem. What would be the first thing an employer can do that would at least put them in the right direction? Like, they're not going to solve the problem overnight. We know that. But give them something.
Well, I'm going to do two things. One, in Next Gen, when I'm working with advisors, we have a framework tool set. What tools do you need? Skill set. What skills are required to use the tools, but also to get someone to hire you to do the work? And mindset. Tool set, skill set, mindset. And mindset's the most important. This is why a lot of professional athletes don't just have a skills coach. They now have a mind coach, a psychologist that works with them so they can get their head right. For a lot of CEOs and CFOs, the problem is in their head. They have trusted Blue Cross because it's Blue Cross, or they've trusted Cigna because it's Cigna. The brand equity that these companies have is tremendous. And then they trust their broker. Well, he's a great guy. He takes me golfing. Well, Okay. The biggest problem in our industry, in healthcare and in employee benefits, is misaligned incentives. People are doing exactly what they should do given their incentives. The problem is they're not aligned with the employer's incentives. So I have a question for the employer. This is the first step. Ask yourself this question and then tell me you can still sleep at night maintaining the status quo. The question is this. I'm going to speak as a CEO. When my insurance company makes more profit when healthcare costs go up, and my broker gets a raise every time my premiums go up, how can I trust them to do what's in my interests? Which requires the cost of healthcare going down and my premiums going down. That's the first step. The second step is find an advisor who aligns incentives, who doesn't take commission, who works with you to help put your plan on a self-funded, self-funding is just a financing mechanism. There's nothing scary about it. Put your health plan on a self-funded financing basis, and then puts together a health plan where you, the employer, have the control, not the insurance company. So you can guarantee that the employees are getting higher quality health care. They're paying less out of pocket. In fact, a lot of our plans, a lot of next-gen plans, the employee pays zero out of pocket if they follow the guidance of the medical team, of the navigation team. Zero. No copay, no deductible, no co-insurance. Their health care is free. They pay their insurance every month, insurance premium, but their health care is free. Those are the first two steps. You've got to find somebody like Chelsea, unabashed commercial for Chelsea. She's terrific. Everyone, I think, now knows she was the 2024 Advisor of the Year. And it's well earned. I was sitting there in the audience watching you get that award, but beforehand you were talking about some of the things you're doing at Ethos, and I didn't have anything to take notes. I'm trying, okay, I have to remember that. That's really good. There was some really great things you were saying. Ethos is a fine advisory firm, but whoever you go for, find somebody that will align their interests with yours as an employer and find out what your options are. If you want to stick with the status quo after you know your options, that's your choice. But logic and your financial obligation, your fiduciary obligation will require that you make a change. Because right now you are throwing money away. You are putting your employees at a disadvantage when they are patients, and you are missing the opportunity to, and there one strategy out there, you can't do this all the time, but there's one strategy, and I think Chelsea knows about it. If not, talk to me about it, Chelsea, that it's a healthcare financing strategy where you can actually turn an OPEX into an asset. And I've never talked to a CFO who goes, not interested in hearing about that. Wait, an OPEX into an asset? I don't think that's possible. But if it is, I want to know about it. And I can assure you it is possible. So even there are even advanced financing strategies that your broker's not going to tell you about this because you have to be self-funded to do it. And they make a lot more money from the insurance company than they do for you. One last thing. You said something earlier on which was really brilliant. You said about the insurance, about the helpline or the advocacy line at the insurance company, they don't work for you. Who does your broker work for? When he's getting paid by the insurance company, are you writing him a check? No, the insurance company's writing him a check. Well, who does he work for? I don't know about you, but I've always worked for whoever signs my paycheck. And that's just true. So who are they working for? And wouldn't you rather have a healthcare team and by the way, this is really not about insurance, it's about healthcare. What we do today, what you do, It's not insurance. Insurance is a little bitty piece of it. It's healthcare. How do you lower healthcare costs if you don't manage healthcare? And so the employer has an opportunity to have people who work for him or her managing their healthcare costs and their healthcare plan instead of someone working for the insurance company.
Brilliant. And exactly right. You have a couple books out. I'm sure people listening today have gotten a little taste of the brilliance and are like, oh, I'd love to hear more. Can you share the titles of your books and where our listeners can find you?
Let's see. Sure. The most recent, these are all on Amazon. The most recent is Healthcare's C-Suite Solution, which is about how employers are fixing healthcare, one employer at a time, one company at a time, and the strategies that they're using. The one, and then there's Fixing American Healthcare is the second title. My favorite out of all of them is Life and Death Decisions in the C-Suite. And any CEO and CFO will look at me, they'll look at you, Chelsea, and go, I don't make life and death decisions here. And I'm going to say, well, not so fast, Spanky. When you choose a healthcare provider, when you choose an insurance company that will not tell your patient, your employee who is a patient, don't go to that doctor. He has killed 2 people. Don't go there. That's a life and death, potentially a life and death decision. So life and death decisions in the C-Suite, Fixing American Healthcare, and Healthcare's C-Suite Solution are the most recent.
Okay. And do you prefer LinkedIn for anybody reaching out to you?
LinkedIn is fine. Nelson Griswold, Next Gen Benefits. But employers are fixing this problem, and we just need enough of them. There's a tipping point, Chelsea, somewhere.
We're close. I feel like
we're getting close. Well, we're certainly getting closer by definition, but I think it's not maybe that far away because the transformation you make to that company's finances and their retention and employee satisfaction. And tell me an employer that doesn't have retention as one of their top issues, their top concerns. So this is a huge retention tool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Nelson.
My pleasure.
Again, we're definitely going to have you back because I think I could talk to you all day. So thanks again.